We are live. What's up, Mr. Tim Murphy?
Dude, what is going on? Hey, did you see the housing statistics that just came out yesterday with the marketplace? Did that kind of blow your mind?
I think that might be a rhetorical question. I did not, Tim.
Oh, dude, what the? I'm gonna
Yeah,
send them to
yeah.
you. Listen, it blows my mind to think about where things have gone and then where that ship is heading. And what I mean
All
by
right.
that is, values, sales, clients. I mean, what do you think? What's going on, man?
Well, I've seen an uptick in activity, and I think that's somewhat normal. January 1st, everybody switches on. It's like, well, if I'm going to sell a house, I'm going to buy a house this year. 2023 is my year. And then they start, and the phone rings. And, believe it or not, you get a lot of calls, and there's not a lot going on in January because February has 50% as many settlements as July, where there's the most amount of settlements. So there's like this. I feel the pent up demand already. I feel like there's people looking that can't find a house already. There's people that want to put their house on the market. I just put one on the market, 3 offers, 48 hours, over asking price, over the appraisal, beautiful.
And I think I think that addresses something very important. I think people have realized, look, the rates aren't 2.5, 3 anymore, right? They've accepted 6. They've accepted the rates. They've accepted the marketplace. They want to jump on board. And you've always said, and I think this is really crucial, they recognize that this is a good time. And you know what our new saying is, right, Brian?
You date the house, you pay your taxes, and you marry the interest rate.
We marry the house, we date the rate, but we divorce the landlord.
Hey, there you go.
Oh man, that's the way I roll, brother. Yeah. So
but
my
you don't
point
pay your
is,
taxes.
yeah, people realize, look, the rents have steadily gone up, right? And they've realized, you know what? The heck with this. It is a good time to buy. And they've also recognized that when the rates do come down, they can refinance, drop their payment, jump on board. So I think number one, I think the overall borrower mentality, the buyer mentality has changed. They accepted the market. They've recognized this is a good time to buy, that waiting, as you've always said, is not going to solve anything. You just need to jump on board and get going. I think that's what it comes down to, right? So I think that's number one.
So what's this like? What's this big news that just popped up though? Like, what's the revelation?
Well, I think the revelation is really threefold. Everybody's talking about affordability, and what they don't understand is a combination of things. So I'm going to give you 3 really quick examples of affordability. You ready? I got 2 21-year-olds that called me Friday because they couldn't find a house to rent. And I said, I'm not a landlord. I don't own, I own all these rental properties. And they said, no, we realized that we were going to pay $2,000 to rent a house, and it was nothing. And I said, and they said, we realized we're going to buy together. And I thought, okay, revelation. Now watch. Ready?
So when I was assuming you meant like either boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, and wife. You're talking about
just 2 guys, not partners, just 2 guys.
Right. Okay. So you're okay. That's an interesting idea.
And
Tim, and you know what I think that comes out of like a new sort of creative thing. So I got a call yesterday from a guy, probably same thing, like 23 years old. He said he just closed on a house in Texas. They're doing that thing where they're taking people who can't sell their house and they're taking over the mortgage or the deed, one of the two, and then they're basically like taking over legal rights to kind of rent the house out and sublease it out, and then the owner gets their mortgage paid so their credit stays good and all this fun stuff. It's interesting. And the guy's like 22 years old. He said he's like got 3 of these. So you got two guys now. Are they going to live in this house?
Yeah. Well, here's what I wanted to tell you. Ready? Under contract already.
Yeah.
They're going to live in the house. And Brian, they bought a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house. Okay. This is just going to blow your mind. Ready? The mortgage payment this is over in Bryan's Road. Okay. You know Charles County, right? The mortgage payment is $2,300. That's principal and interest, tax, and insurance, right? And they're renting 2 bedrooms out at $800 a piece.
That's fantastic. So, I got this house in Silver Spring. It's got an apartment in the basement, and I have an assumable loan on it. It's $2,700 for a $500,000 house. The ceiling in the basement is the issue. But in any case, I'm thinking like rent the basement for $1,200 a month, and you have a $1,500 house payment on a $500,000 house in Silver Spring. It's a no-brainer,
Right.
So there are creative ways
Exactly.
of doing things that I think this new market is forcing people to get creative.
So I,
I
I think
have
you
met
nailed it there.
multiple people that have done what you said, where you rent out the
So
rooms and everything.
two people
Young
buying.
people.
Yep,
Yeah.
young people looking at house hacking, renting out the rooms, which
Yeah.
is major. You talked about assumptions. And the other one is, guys, 2-1 buy downs. Brian, I mean, people are getting into the house and saying, you know what, I can't, maybe the payment's a little higher than where I want to be today, but my income is still going up. I still recognize where the market's going. And if rates do come down, why not get into a 2-1 buy down where instead of a 6% 30-year fixed rate, I start at 4, go to 5, and stop at 6. Give you time to adjust and
Right.
appreciation the benefits.
Well, what's the big revelation out of this news that you got?
Well, so what it all comes down to is despite sales being down, which they are, both know, we see the unit sales, right?
Right.
And despite the overall, resale marketplace, at the same time, there are still opportunities there, but you've got to introduce the strategies and ideas to make it work. And Brian, you and I have done this. You ready for? And this is, I think, so important. You've sat down with a client, a seller, and you said, "Hey, you know what? Let me get Tim on the line to tell you a little bit about the marketplace."
We've done everything.
And that's my
We've done
point.
everything.
And
We've done all the above.
And that's what's changing, Brian. The revelation is borrowers are now have accepted the marketplace, number one, but they're looking for creative ways to be able to afford the payment today. They recognize that rates are going to come down sometime in the future, given that we're in a recession. And at the last token, they also are getting closing help. Brian.
Yeah, I saw that. I just looked at a bunch of condos in Crofton, and over 50% of them that sold in the past 6 months had seller help to the tune of $10,000.
Right.
It was a lot.
So
yeah. What do you think is, so the other thing that I also read recently is the number one new profile of a buyer is first-time home buyers for the first time in 3 years.
Yep. And in fact, the article I saw said over 65% of the purchasers will be first-time home buyers this year.
65%. All right. So home sellers, y'all need to hear this. If 65% of the buyers are first-time home buyers, there's one thing they all have in common, and that is they've never owned a house before. And if you've never owned a house before, you are not taking advantage of this average American $175,000 in equity. And you are going to need to consider the fact that if more than 50% of your buyers are in the market, are first-time home buyers, there's a strong possibility they don't have all the money they need to
Correct.
pay closing help. And maybe they can afford a higher payment if you negotiate with them to pay their closing costs, maybe raise the sales price a little bit. As long as it appraises for higher, you kind of finance the closing costs. Something we do all the time. $500,000 house, you need $15,000 in closing.
Yeah.
Basically, as long as the house appraises at $515,000, we bump the price to $515,000. Give the buyer $15,000 in credit. They get their closing costs paid. Seller makes the same amount of money. Everybody's happy. We all fist bump and we go to settlement.
And Brian, I think you nailed it right there. I mean, what it comes down to is, and most sellers don't understand this, in the listing, you should be putting in the closing help up front.
Well, I'll tell you, man, that's a tricky one because home sellers feel like that they don't want to give away that up front. Now, matter of fact, had a conversation with a guy yesterday.
Okay.
It depends on your timing. So we have this thing called the absorption rate, right? So
right.
If there's 10 houses on the market, 5 sell every month, then you got 2 months of inventory. It means you need to be in the top 5 if you want to sell this month. So in that situation, he was in a situation where there was 4 months of inventory, 8 houses on the market, 2 sell every month, and he wants to sell in 2 weeks. And I said, bro, you have to be first. You have to be pole position. To get in pole position, if 50% of these houses are paying closing help, in that situation, I feel like we lead out with, I will pay you, $10,000 in closing help to buy this house.
With a full contract. You know what I mean? And I think you're right. I also think you can be the higher end of the marketplace when you offer the closing help up front.
Yeah, you can, because people who don't have the money are more desperate and willing to do whatever it takes to get into a house. And if no one's paying the closing help and you're the only one that is, they're like, oh, you know what? It's not my favorite house or whatever. It's more than I wanted to pay. and then they buy it because it's the only option they have available. And that's great for selling your house. I'll tell you where that's not a great idea, honestly. Never rent your house for more than it should be rented for, because then you get those same people that are stretching themselves beyond what they should be. They always come with a little bit of story with their whole situation.
Right.
And it's like, well, no one wants it except for these people. And I've seen it happen more than once.
And they're not the highest quality client.
Yeah, beware. You want to price your rental to get these really super clean, high credit people that are going to be great tenants.
So I think you nailed it down. So what is this market all about? This is a changed market. This is a proactive market. You've got to offer the solutions up front. You've got to promote the ideas, whether it's house hacking, whether it's closing help, whether it's assumptions, whether it's 2-1 buy downs, whatever creative force that we've got to plug into the picture, you've got to present the idea up front. Because let's face it, all we hear about is the negative news, right? What sells? Negative news, right? We've got to turn the picture around, pull people out of the equation and say, look, here's the positive parts. Here's what you can do. Here's how you can make it happen. And now probably is the best time. Closing help, right? Number one, motivated sellers. Number two, getting the repairs, getting the inspections, right? And being able to negotiate the deal. I think it's a win-win. I really do.
Okay. Yeah. And you know what? I actually had this conversation yesterday. Let me ask you this. I'm starting to change my mind on this one. What do you think on house prices 2023?
You're going to laugh. You know what
I'm probably not going to laugh.
Okay,
I'm going to laugh anyway. But go ahead.
I still believe they're going to be at that 3 to 5% appreciation. And the
I'm going to change my position, Tim, officially right now, January 18th, 2023. Yep. I'm going to agree with Tim.
Oh, geez, dude! I thought you were going to fight me on this one. I thought you were going to tell me 7 to 10% the other way.
No. I think that we've already seen somewhat of a depreciation. We've already seen. I mean, because I can see where houses were at this price, and now they're not getting that price. Like it's not easy. Let's not be.
No, not at all.
Let's not think that it's going to become a seller's market,
right?
Per se, it still kind of is a seller's market if you want to look at it from a technical perspective. It's still going to be hard to sell your house somewhat, but I do also agree supply and demand situation has not been resolved.
That's it. And everybody, we're not going to see foreclosures, Brian. There's not going to be a million foreclosures. People didn't buy houses based on the roll of the dice of appreciation or the ninja loans, right? Now,
so that people that are upside down, they can just, I mean, they can't afford their house can still sell it, because even if you bought it 2 years ago, you've acquired some equity enough to at least pay your realtors or whatever.
And have a professional handling the situation. Now, I want you to just touch base on a very important topic. You ready? Okay. I think it's more important than ever to use a professional realtor in the process. Remember last year before? What happened? And I know it's just making you all
2021. You mean that was the year where it was like, I got, the thing that made me mad was these realtors and they were like, I got another one at 3 days on the market. And I'm like, that's the second house you ever sold.
That's my point. Exactly. And I think you and I both know we've talked about this. You've got to have a professional in the operation. You can't just say, I'm going to go with John, Dick, or Harry. You've got to be in the process. You've got to check their stats. You've got to check their performance. You really got to nail it down. It's the market we're in, because like we've talked about, a house gets stale after 10 days.
That's my bread and butter, Tim. 80% of the houses that I sell are from people who fail to sell with another realtor. And then they talk to me and we go over my process, and then they hire me as the second or the third, even sometimes the fourth realtor. And you're right. It does require, and I don't want to sit here and get all negative and, poo-poo these things, but you get out there and you see some of these houses, Tim, and you're like, yeah, I can see why this one didn't sell. I can see why this one didn't sell. I can see, talk to a guy today. Hey man, look, let's be honest about this. Come on. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the key. It wasn't presented right. The photographs are from like 1964. I'm not sure why they used black.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how you even get pictures that bad sometimes, because I'm trying to think any phone created after 2015 is at least 10 megapixel, really nice quality camera. Right. You would have to go buy a yard sale thing from like the 90s to get some of the pictures this bad. I'm just thinking I couldn't, even if I tried. Everybody's phone around me is going to take better pictures than this. Anyway,
But beyond that, so that's my key. The last thing I want you to know, and I really want to hit on this. You ready? So the housing statistics, state of Maryland prints out housing statistics every year, right? I mean, and they come out. Maryland Association of Realtors jump on board. It came out yesterday, and I wanted you to understand this because this blew my mind. When we look at months of inventory, in other words, how long will it take to absorb the current marketplace, right? Anne Arundel County had 0.8 months as of December. Brian, that's all they had in inventory, right?
Yeah, and it sounds like, oh, that makes it a seller's market, and it still kind of does. But sometimes when you look at those 0.8, they've been on there for 130 days, so it's tricky how that is. Like, I think a lot of the normal numbers don't make sense. But the one thing you can get from there is that there's not a lot of houses on the market. So even if you said, okay, it's going to be more of a buyer's market, not a buyer's, more of a buyer's, it doesn't mean you're going to have 10 to pick from.
Correct. And that's the important part. You're still going to have a limited inventory. We got to put in affordable solutions. And that's what we talked about, just how we circled all the way back, how to make the sales happen. What's this year's looking like? Honestly, I'm excited. I think we're going to see, a challenging year. I think the whole entire setting, the real estate mortgage industry, just total, you won't recognize in December of this year. I think it's going to be totally changed.
I do think you're right in the sense of, and I've had this conversation quite a bit. It seems like, I don't know what the industry terms are. Some of them you can't say on TV here or whatever, but it's like every deal is this effort that didn't always exist. Like sometimes when you have multiple buyers buying a house, what ends up happening is you can strip away all the nonsense. Like, I know we're not paying your closing costs. We're not making a bunch of repairs. I get all my houses pre-home inspected, so we don't really have that as much. But you don't have these people changing their mind, walking away, financing falling apart.
Correct.
It seems like it's like you just hang up the phone after the contract and you're like, I'll see you in 30 days, and you just go to settlement. And now it's just like, just getting them on the market is hard. Just getting them to agree to do the whatever it is. And then the buyers are coming with, challenges. And I get these calls. Hey, we have this, we have that. What do you think? Would you guys consider doing this? And it's like, well, so it's like, and then once you get under contract, it's still challenging. It seems like, I don't know what the right metaphor is, Tim. Maybe you can throw one out here where it's going to be harder to do every deal. You're going to have to work harder. Your machine's going to have to work better. You're going to have to be more efficient. And if you're not good at it, you don't have solutions, you don't have the expertise, you don't have resources, and you're not creative, and you're not like a bulldog who's going to do whatever it takes to make the deal go down, you're going to have a rough time in this next year. That's how I would say it. Not everybody, but I'm saying more than it has been for most realtors who have been in the business, because the average is 87% of agents are out before 60 months. You go back 60 months, and there's very few agents that haven't been in a great market, right?
Exactly. And I think people don't understand. You're right on the money. You got to grind it out, number one. And then the other thing, number two, is you don't want to rely on everything you see on the internet. You don't focus. I mean, I got a young guy in the other day, yesterday morning at 10 o'clock. Dillion came in and we sat down, 22 years old, civil engineer, says, I worked for the company for 6 months. I don't want to work for a corporation forever. How can you make me wealthy? Brian, I was like, I love this guy.
Yeah, let's talk about that next week, Tim. Well, that was one of the things we have down for one of our next videos, is how to do some investing, especially as a young person.
Well, I think we can nail that part down.
We could do a class on that, guys. If you guys want to watch a video on how to buy houses creatively, like not, live in it and then sell it, but like buy investment property. And there are some creative ways you can go about it. Like Tim just mentioned, you get yourself a partner. Everything is now 50% off. Your profit's 50%, but you're still 50%. It's easier to get into it. And
it helps with some of the risk. It takes away some of the drive. So yeah, Brian, let's hit on that. And like you said, and you nailed it down in the very beginning, local realtors, local lenders, looking at the stats, looking at the performance, looking at affordability. I think it's going to be a great year, man. I really do. I'm fired up.
Good. All right, Tim.
All right, man.
Well, good talking to you, man. Thank you for joining us today. I will see you next week.
See you then, sir. Talk to you soon, man. Have a good one.